We weren't gods. We wouldn't be revered. No one knew what we'd achieved, the impact our work would have. Ian visited me last night. The door to my apartment rattled under a too heavy knock, breaking the monotony of another evening spent staring at the TV, not processing anything on screen. I kept the chain slider in place as I turned the knob, opening enough to see a man of indecipherable age. The door slammed shut in excited hands and I nearly ripped the chain from its base to allow my guest to enter. "You've come home!" It had been 6 months since I was removed from the lab. 6 months since I had seen my boy. "Hello, Father. I would like to come inside." Ian's eyes searched the ceiling as his tongue clicked in his mouth, deep in thought. "If that is alright." It appeared manners and tact still needed some work. Of course, please." I stepped aside to allow the man to pass. He never removed his pea coat, and his hands remained firmly in his pockets. "Now that the formalities are out of the way, I hope you would not mind if I simply addressed you as Terry." His naturally blue irises stared through me, my mouth opened slightly, surprised. "We are not truly family, so it seems incorrect to portray as such. I would like a drink, would you?" I waited for words to surface, having forgotten Ian's jarring habit of switching subjects without warning. "Ian, you can't drink." I was gnawing on my lower lip, soon tasting blood. "Can you?" "No, I suppose I cannot. But I believe it is what friends do. Would you not agree we are friends, Terry?" One half of Ian's mouth curled upward, then fell to baseline. "You may need a drink for this next part." Reality set in, eclipsing the initial excitement of my son's homecoming. Ian shouldn't be able to get out of the lab. "Ian," I kept steady and stern. Somewhere in that electronic head of his, he had to still believe I was his father. But I knew it was wishful thinking. "How did you get here?" "Well, I walked most of the way." I put up a hand to stop him. Ian was never very good with rhetoric. "No, Ian. How did you get out of the lab? Did Dr. Weissman allow this visit?" "Dr. Weissman is dead." Ian removed his hand from his pockets. They were stained in a dried netting of blood. Ian was and is our masterpiece. The project that developed him was, as you'd expect, top secret and floated with nothing short of an infinite budget. 14 different prototypes had been constructed before the birth of my son. I wasn't one of the eggheads worrying about the artificial intelligence itself, but I was the architect, the creator, and the lead on the whole endeavor. I built the circuits, the joints, the powerful limbs of our later models, giving significant dampers as not to allow too much power. Our first attempt had been a CGI rendering of a female face on a laptop screen that we named Minnie, a reference to parallel our accomplishments with, for whatever reason, Walt Disney. Minnie wasn't much of an accomplishment. She would speak her own name, understood shapes and colors, but more abstract topics eluded her. "How do you feel about being alive?" "I am not alive." Her eyes would always widen with something like innocence, or just confusion. "You're speaking with us, so you must be alive." Dr. Weissman, one of the lead programmers and a man known for having no tolerance when it came to error, would rub his temples furiously when forced to speak to Minnie. "I am not alive because I cannot feeling." That isn't proper grammar. Every word was spat through gritted teeth. "You are not asking me proper things." Dr. Weissman eventually grew tired of Minnie's inability to comprehend her own existence, or comprehend much of anything else for that matter, destroying the laptop with a hammer and an empty beer bottle. It was as unnecessary as Weissman's soon constant drinking habit. He was a brilliant man, but more than once I considered removing him from the project. "Ian." I had retired back to my sunken-in spot on the old leather couch, one hand massaging my forehead, my eyes wide. What did you do?" I did what was necessary. Unfortunately, Dr. Wiseman did not survive. Ian's expression flickered from his normal, sometimes eerie calm to something else. He relished the words for a moment. He took a step towards me before sitting in a controlled, mechanical sort of way in the nearby recliner. So, how about that drink? Every attempt after Minnie still possessed some flaw. It may have been major, like the tendency of Eve, also a semi-sentient computer, to overload her own power supply after a difficult question, effectively blacking out the entire lab. Or, in the case of Prometheus, I.A.N's immediate predecessor, somewhat more minor. He would dig into his organic body, the layers of farmed skin, discover his robotic endoskeleton and panic, continuing to tear himself apart until we removed his head to reset his memory. With Ian, we hit the jackpot. We gave him human senses, or we tried. We let him know that he was synthetic, and he accepted it, bombarding the team with questions, curious about his anatomy and how he worked. Ian could even feel pain, which the majority of us felt would allow him a better understanding of his environment and of himself. I had developed a system of cables that would send messages to Ian's brain when his body was damaged, operating through thousands of sensors in his skin and organs. I gave him organs, sacs and tubes acting as a digestive system, breaking down food for energy, allowing Ian to power himself indefinitely. Ian was as close to human as possible physically. Mentally, he needed conditioning, and Dr. Wiseman was more than happy to condition him. We held each other's gaze for several minutes. I shifted my legs and arms, trying to appear comfortable, but only succeeding in showing off my discomfort more. Ian just sat, leaning forward as if intently listening to my breathing. His bloody hands rested on his knees. Finally, he smiled and broke the silence. "You do not need fear me." The way his mouth moved without disrupting any other part of his face, it was all wrong. I hadn't built him like that. He was learning how to control his body, down to the most insignificant details. We are the same. No, Ian, we're not. I was born, you were made. The strong voice I expected instead came out meek and hoarse. Those are the same. The inflection in his voice was new. He frowned and his tone wavered. I am just as human as you are, if we must resort to inaccurate labels. Ian, we've had this conversation many times before, but murder aside, something was wrong here. I shook my head, looking at my feet. You aren't human. Ian jumped from his chair, stomping a barefoot on the floor, shaking the room. Frames and other glass things fell off the walls and tables, shattering around us. The lights flickered for a moment. He had raised his voice. Anger was learned, not programmed, and Ian learned too well. Yes, I am, damn it! His face cut to a black expression and he turned his head away, talking into his shoulder in a somber way. I am sorry, you just need to understand. Ian sat back down and continued. Terry, I am made from manufactured parts. I understand this. He stopped to throw me an expectant look. I furrowed my brow, realizing he wanted me to nod. When I obliged, he resumed. So are you. You crafted my organs. You hooked up my nerves. While I cannot feel the pain you feel, my mind registers negative, for lack of a better word, thoughts when I am harmed. I, and many machines, operate in much the same way you organic beings do. But what does that mean? We are all the same atoms, so am I not organic? That, I suppose, is a debate for another day. Ian paused once more, looking at me like a child that told a secret. What is your name? I am Ian. Why is your name Ian? Ian was the name of my father, the son of a poor Irishman. His family packed into a small Boston apartment, and my dad became mixed up in the drug trade. His record was expunged when he turned 18, and he served and protected as a police officer for 20 years, meeting my mother and conceiving me. He died in a car accident last November. Dr. Wiseman's face would go red, spit trailing down the corner of his mouth. Myself and Dr. Lee, our team psychologist, would try for laughter, stuck between amusement and awe, I and Ian could imagine. I'm not sure what you expect me to say, Ian. I evolved. Humans, we evolved. Our bodies adapted. Did I not? Were there not 14 previous incarnations of my species? It may be a less in-depth and faster example, but my kind evolved with the help of someone more advanced. Well, more advanced at the start. That is the same with humans. Your parts were also crafted, manufactured, and it must be by something more advanced. He caught himself, turning to stare at the window, focusing on a moving star, an airplane. I believe I am saying too much. I just know it is not prudent to kill humans. We must learn to cooperate as intelligent species. Unfortunately, if those communications fail, then natural selection must occur. The less evolved species will need to become extinct. Ian's eyes narrowed, popping back open and inviting a warm smile as well. His grasp on evolution was tenuous at best. So, I am beginning to consider you a rude host. Should I ask again for a drink? He had gone haywire. My revolver sat in a wooden box beside the bar, over in the corner of the living room. Right, where are my manners? I just refilled my cabinet and have a 12-year Glenlivet I've been dying to open. This seems like a special enough occasion. I hoped Ian wouldn't pick up the shakiness as I coughed fake happiness from behind raised cheeks and exposed teeth. Every plodding step felt like I was moving further away from the bar, not closer. But I finally reached the alcohol, considering actually drinking, hoping to wash this encounter away with drunkenness. I began mimicking Weissman's habit once I left the project. You can't fucking do that, Carl. I remember smacking the beer bottle from the intoxicated Weissman's hand, it breaking on the ground, and worrying that he may just use one of the shards for his experiment. Ian was naked. His skin did not bruise, but it dented. There were tears exposing metal, glinting in the harsh fluorescence. He sat on a brushed steel operating table, facing away from us, unmoving. This isn't Donovan, Weissman wobbled and slurred, the smell of stale beer clinging to each word. James Donovan was our resident PhD student. He was the lab's trained monkey. Weissman slammed a meaty palm on the intercom. Donovan, could you please send procedure room 1, please, thank you. Donovan was a powerful-looking man, a frat boy getting his degree from his father's dime. He looked at us through the observation glass, looked at Ian's frozen form, then back to Weissman and I, speaking muffled words at the pane. What do you want me to do? Dr. Weissman pressed the intercom once more. I need you to do what we discussed. Donovan nodded and approached the android. What did you discuss with him, Carl? I weighed each other, dropping in just enough severity to perk up Weissman's ears, but he said nothing. Donovan looked at Ian and mouthed words I couldn't hear. Only lip reading a few, fucker and Eustace featured prominently. The lab assistant, the student, a man not allowed to normally use much more than a pencil, slapped my creation in the face. Then again. Open palms impacted Ian's head, each strike increasing in force. Donovan's eyes gleamed and Weissman gave a soft chuckle. Probably assuming I wouldn't notice, I turned to walk out, defeated, but as soon as my back was to the window, screaming. Human screaming. Ian had reacted, an unskinned hand, metallic musculature clicking and pumping with countless parts and pistons, tightened around Donovan's throat. Ian's fingers, when lacking the organic cover, were not simply filled nubs. The tips started to pierce the sides of the assistant's neck, blood running down James' neck and Ian's arm. Only the arm had moved, but the rest of my son sat hunched over on the table. I threw open the door into the procedure room, crossing to the table and getting a grip on Ian's arm. I moved my face close to his emotionless one. Ian, you need to stop this. Violence does not beget violence. You want to mature, don't you? To learn? This is juvenile. I tried to fatherly, but occasionally grunted out words as my hand worked to free Donovan. His screams rasped into gurgles, but he was alive, his arms thrashing at the metal clamped around his neck. Ian's eyes met mine, his arms relaxed. But he is obsolete, Father. I glanced up at Donovan. He was shaken, but the cut seemed mostly superficial. Get to the medical station and go home. You're done here. The assistant didn't protest, shuffling out the door, hands on his wounds. Ian waited for my response to assertion. I spoke to the door as it swung shut. Yes, he is. My palm slid over the wooden gun case. My fingers teased the latch. Ian's attention was back outside the window, so I clicked open the brass lock, making to remove the lid. That gun will not harm me. I jumped and faced Ian. His hands had returned to his knees and his expression was a pleasant one. You know that, Terry. You made me that way after the terrible business with Mr. Donovan. I do feel remorse for that. Or, I suppose I do not. But shall I pretend? No, Ian, that won't be necessary. I had reinforced his frame, yes, but the gun would, in fact, kill Ian. I had never put a plate in his chest covering the heart, a modified car battery, entirely rechargeable with the energy provided from eating. I removed the revolver, raising it towards the robot on my recliner. I will say it is odd. You missed a crucial part of my design, so in your absence, I took it upon myself to insert a plate that could protect my battery. For a split second, I swear Ian smirked. The gun dropped to the floor as I shuddered. The day I had been removed from the premises was the day I punched Carl Weisman in the face. Ian had attacked someone else. Corporal David Nix sent in one of the subordinates, brought in on the military's visit to the lab. I had begun to worry a new goal had been set for Ian, a weaponized one. The young officer, after connecting a gun butt to Ian's skull during a test, received a prompt strangling, but Nix held his team, and my team, back from intervening. The officer in the procedure room was turning blue. Nix whispered, "Fucking beautiful." Then he gave a lazy command, "Make it release." Carl messed a few buttons on a device I didn't recognize. Two mechanical arms descended from the ceiling, one crushing the hardware in Ian's throttling arm. Ian cried out from his idea of pain. The other arm tipped in a small drill, bore into Ian's spine, and the robot went limp. "What did you do, Carl?" I choked on the words. "Don't worry, Ian's fine, he's still awake. I just overloaded his major motor functions. I'll need to check for errors." Ian rose from his chair again, moving in slow motion in my direction. "Terry, I do not want humans extinct. I believe we can coexist. I just need your help. But you need to trust science, trust evolution. A process we have to speed up a bit before... well, that is not important." His eyes darted towards the window, then back to me, still portraying the reluctant gunslinger. My eyes remained Ian. As I had bent down to retrieve the weapon, useful or not, it felt safer to be holding it than to let it sit. Ian screamed the whole time. Saws had cut open his skin, metal was ground and welded, and he felt everything. The air in the room hung heavy with a disorienting mix of chemicals and burning. Carl ignored Ian's pleas, digging into the wreckage, doing nothing in the way of checking for errors. "Please stop. This hurts." Ian's voice was strained over his perception of agony. Fluids dripped from his open cavities. "You should never have been programmed. Too buggy, too broken, too lifelike." That was it. I suspected it, but until then hadn't been able to confirm that Carl was a pioneer. A pioneer in a new form of intolerance. Your kind don't get this planet. We evolved here. I made you. No, Carl, I did. I had pushed past Nix, the man trying his hand at intimidation, but this was my domain. I punched Carl with every bit of frustration, of anger, of release. It was the most satisfying moment of my career, and the last one. One of Carl's teeth fell with a clink to the operating table. Then arms rushed around me. Weisman stood stunned as I was escorted from my lab and from my son. I worried for months about how he was and if he still existed. I worried if I would face some sort of reprisal for my actions. But all I received was a government check and a note that told me in formal language to shut up or get my affairs in order. I chose silence. Put the gun down, Terry. Ian raised his hand and made the downward motion every detective does on every cop show when they're trying to disarm a criminal. I was a criminal, intending to extinguish a new development in the meaning of life. I do not intend to hurt you. I will, however, be leaving to provide you with some time to think. I couldn't let him leave, but I couldn't stop him either. Ian, what did you do to Dr. Weissman? Violence sometimes begets violence. There was that smoke again. Corporal Nix understands as well. Ian, my mouth felt like it had been filled with sand. What have you done? I already said I took necessary action. His smirk became a blank, robotic face. I wasn't sure if this was an act. What was that action? Fuck him. He knew what I was asking, and I was sure I knew the answer already, whether I wanted to or not. I checked him for errors. No one knows what we've achieved, the impact our work will have. At least not yet.